Right now, get up to a $15 gift card after rebate when you purchase select Superstart batteries exclusively at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5.
Hey, it's the first Top 5 at 5 we've done together in about 3 months.
It's about a week.
Been at least a week. You're fortunate if you've not. I don't know which flu. I don't know if I had A or B. I had one of them. And the drugs are finally through me, I think. My voice still isn't great. But I was on Tamiflu and Z-Pak and cough medicine. And the word on the street is there's a lot of stuff going around right now. A lot of stuff.
Yeah, one of my kids had something for like 12 hours.
Yeah,
late last week.
That's what's different about this for me. It took longer than usual. It was a little bit more sustaining. So I'm hoping to get to the other side of that. If you're battling with the same thing, let me know.
Welcome back to the spotlight, young man.
Good to be back. What do you have?
Let's start with the Twins thing. Nice cough right on cue.
Excuse me. I was doing the exact opposite. I thought I was turning my mic off. I was turning it on.
You really accentuated it.
Correct.
But that's good. That just tells people you weren't faking it.
That's it. No, I was not faking it.
Let's start with the Twins nugget.
Okay.
First of all, we missed you on Enough Said because it was just classic. Jim Rich was in, he's still, I think, maybe in Fort Myers. I don't know if he's been back, but he was at, spring training. And Pierre, it was Johnny Athletic and I that hosted on Friday for Enough Said because Pierre couldn't get his haircut moved, and I'm not making that up, which I'm going to roast him for forever.
You got to be kidding.
His barber, you got to get in with this guy. And so I tried to tell him that my gals at the Country Village Great Clips would get him in anytime, and he didn't seem all that interested in it. But Lori Fisher, who does the show with us, reported that Jim Rich reported. She asked Jim what the vibe was at spring training, which is the most Lori question ever, right? It's like, what do you think it is? They just got there. It's 100 degrees.
Yeah.
Everything's great. And Jim said, cautiously optimistic. And so he said, that makes sense. I would hope. I'm glad it's not complete pessimism. But then we get the news that over the weekend, and I know you talked about this on Sermons yesterday, that what seemed like was done, or at least progressing nicely, multiple Ishbias, including, I think, Justin. Is that the one we're talking about?
Justin is the specific Ishbia, yes.
Who was going to buy the Twins, and they were hopefully going to have something, as Lavelle has told us forever, by opening day. Like, everything seemed like it was moving swimmingly. And then we learned that not only is Justin Ishbia out, he's apparently going to buy big stake in the White Sox. He's also apparently already building a house in Craig Kilborn's brother's town, Winnetka, for like $80 million, which is more than the White Sox have ever spent on any free agent, which your friends in Chicago have noticed. So I bring all of this up because it's over for the Ishbias, which I want to talk about. But our guy, AJ Przinsky, who won't come on our show, but did appear on 670 The Score, your guys Spiegel and Holmes. I don't know if this is Spiegel or Holmes that's asked this question, but they want to know what AJZ's reaction to the Ishbia news is.
How did you receive the news? What did you think about when the news crossed over the weekend that Justin Ishbia is abandoning his pursuit of one of your former teams, the Twins, and instead investing in probably the future ownership in full of your other former team, the White Sox? How did that news hit you over the weekend?
Let's go, baby. What do you mean? How did it hit me? Are you kidding me? How did it hit me? I mean, listen, I love the Twins and I love Minnesota because they were where I came up from and always have a great piece of me. But I want the White Sox to be great, man. And if these brothers can come in and buy a larger piece and help up the payroll and pay players and make this team and organization a better thing, then you know what? Let's go, baby. Because Jerry's not going to, as much as this pains me to say, Jerry's not going to own the team forever. And at some point, these guys come in and buy it. And we talked about this today on FT. I think they'd be the second richest owners in baseball behind Stevie Cohen. So, hey, let's go. They can start buying players and buying the superstars we need to win in today's game. Yes. Yes, please. You know what they're going to become? What the Cubs should become, a powerhouse in the Central.
Whoa, it's depressing.
The last 25 seconds, I think, is the most depressing, that they're going to be the second richest owners and they are going to be aggressive, it sounds like.
I've said this before, and this is the this is the sticky wicket of it all. You can make the argument that the Phoenix Suns are very poorly run by those owners. Not that they're afraid to spend money, that they are more than willing to spend it, but that doesn't necessarily mean they've spent it wisely. They're a mess.
That's fair.
That team is an utter mess. They box themselves in. They are forcing themselves to trade Durant, which, by the way, might end up being good to the Wolves this summer, but that's for later down the road. Not because they want to trade Durant, but because they can't trade the other guy. What's his name from Washington?
Bradley Beal.
Bradley Beal, because he's got a no trade, and he has said, I'm not budging. And that was the mistake of being as interested in Beal as they were, given the other pieces on that team that made no sense. So that's the irony of this, is we're ready for somebody who's willing to spend like a drunken sailor because of what we're accustomed to. But it doesn't necessarily mean they'll spend it wisely, because in Phoenix, you could argue they have not. Now, you have to hope that, if he ends up running this Ishbia ends up running the White Sox, I'm sure White Sox fans say, well, we'll take our chances.
Yes.
And I think that's what Twins fans would say. We'll take our chances with somebody who, if they do screw up, the beauty of it in baseball, of course, is they can paper over their own mistakes in a way that in the NBA there are limits because of the second apron rules.
Exactly.
And that's what you would hope, is that they're so into it that they'd say, we don't care. We'll just pretend we'll hide that $50 million expense and we'll just add another 50, and we'll be no worse for the wear. But to your larger point, because that was the only name that has surfaced to this point, that was the only name that made it feel credible or real, that a change was coming here. And so when that name dries up and very quickly disappears over the weekend, then you're back to, well, where are we? Behind the scenes, maybe there's 2 or 3 other names we don't know about, but none of them have surfaced. And until they do, I think it's going to make it harder for anybody to get excited about, the Twins are serious about selling the team when the name that we thought was in the front burner no longer exists.
Part of the Phoenix Suns problem is they have a lot of expensive players that are a bad fit.
That's it.
There's not necessarily bad fits in baseball. You look at the numbers and go, well, this pitcher's really good. He was 21-3 with a 2.1 ERA, made 30 starts, struck out 500 people last year. We're going to go get that guy. We're going to go pay him $300 million. We don't have to worry about where does he fit in playing next to Kevin Durant.
Yes.
Now, obviously, it guarantees nothing. Big spending teams don't always win. We all know that, but it gives you a chance. And I think people have just really gotten excited about the idea.
Yeah, no question.
Because we wanted what AJ just said. The deep pockets, the new money that doesn't care about anything and is going to spend. Doesn't look like that's going to happen now.
No, apparently that dream has died.
What was your favorite tush-push moment?
It's over?
Well, it's not over, but an unidentified team, which was later identified by reporters as Carl Gerbschmidt's Green Bay Packers, submitted a rule proposal to ban the tush-push quarterback sneak. That was according to Troy Vincent, the NFL's executive vice president for football operations. He said this today at the Combine. You may have heard the scouting Combine is going on this week. Paul Allen doing a couple of shows there starting tomorrow, I believe. Bursich is there as well. Always some of my favorite PA shows when he's in Indy for the Combine. But the tush push, the popularized by Jalen Hurts and the Eagles and duplicated by everybody to varying degrees of success. One team said, we don't like it. We want you to outlaw it. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere. When you do these types of things, you need 24 of the NFL's 32 owners to vote yes on your proposal for it to pass. But pretty interesting that the Green Bay Packers apparently are the team that said, we don't want to deal with the tush push anymore. Your thoughts?
Well, I've always thought that the tush push is counterintuitive as a football play. It doesn't, to me, it's never made any sense. I don't enjoy watching it. The truth is, a lot of teams don't. We don't do it. Have we ever done a tush push? The Vikings? I don't remember us doing much tush push.
The Gophers have done it a lot. I know that.
Yeah,
I don't know about the Vikings.
I don't remember the Vikings doing it all that much, if at all, this year. Whatever. I would not be devastated if it went away.
I kind of agree with you.
But I don't know if there's, like you said, there's enough will across the league to do so.
The Commanders, I think, would agree with you. They jumped off sides 52 times to try to stop Philly doing it in the postseason. So it's something at least interesting there. Timberwolves back in action tonight against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who we played last night here in an 8:30 game that I think started at 8:50.
It did.
For what it's worth, Alan Horton reports that the Timberwolves beat the Thunder to Oklahoma City last night because that's where they are now. Johnny Athletic filed a report about an hour and a half ago or so.
So is it a schedule loss for us or for Oklahoma City tonight?
I would think it's got to be us.
Because we had to leave home.
Because they get to go home.
They get to go home. Even though but if we got there earlier than they did, does that give us back the advantage?
And probably more of our players got to bed because we were just going to a hotel.
That's true.
And I'm guessing they had to go to all their various houses. And how many Oklahoma City Thunder players have kids that they then had to spend time with today?
That's true.
Or stay up with last night when they got
a lot
home.
of young players too, don't they? They're the youngest. I think they're still the youngest team in the league.
I think you're right. So who knows?
I mean, they have more kids or fewer kids?
Probably fewer.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
So maybe we're the veteran team. But anyway, we lock it up again tonight, 7 o'clock, a game you'll hear right here on The Fan. Jalen Clark, who left the game last night after that scary fall, who was playing terrific basketball yet again, left the game with neck soreness. That's what they're going with. It's not a concussion. And he is listed as questionable for tonight's game with neck soreness. Gobert, Randall, and Dante DiVincenzo all remain out, but Jalen Clark at least is not in the concussion protocol after he was down for a good couple of minutes last night after he hit his head hit the ground or the basket, whatever it is. I never really saw a good replay on it and didn't want to watch it, judging how people's reactions were. But he's at least not out, but he's listed as questionable.
And the word is that Rudy Gobert is out again tonight, and I should say Johnny Athletic with us. He is in Oklahoma City. He joined us earlier in the show, and he acknowledged that there's growing concern about the nagging issue here regarding the back spasms in the case of Rudy. The longer this goes, the more you worry that it's not a thing that's going to go away anytime soon. And whatever you think of Rudy, there's no question that a lot of things change defensively without him out there on a team that really, let's face it, does not even have a backup center. Gaardsy had some interesting minutes yesterday.
Knocked down a three.
He hit a nice three, and I had a couple of nice offensive rebounds. But that, on top of all the other injuries, that's a bit of a problem for your favorite club. And again, the time's running out here. You have to try to get something going quickly. No one cares about your injuries. You still have to find a way to steal games. And they played. It was a very entertaining and competitive game last night. I agree with that totally. Ultimately, as we talked about much earlier, it came down to what it often comes down to for the Wolves, just dysfunction in the winning time part of the game, the last 2 or 3 minutes of the ball game, where we continue to be among above 500 teams. We're easily the worst team in the league. Now, when it comes to winning time games, a lot of that is we play more than most teams, but you have to win a greater percentage of them than we are winning. And once again, last night, our execution down the stretch was not very good.
Lastly, a hockey nugget for Kevin Fallness. Your guy, Dan, Ryan Hartman, who was suspended 10 games for pushing that dude's face into the ice.
Oh, yeah.
His suspension has been reduced from 10 games to 8.
Oh,
he
major
did appeal
success
to Gary Bettman.
Okay.
So he got 2 games shaved off. So he's eligible now to return March 4th when the Wild begin a 2-game road trip in Seattle. He lost about $500,000, but it's been reduced to about $400,000 lost now. So he can be back March 4th. The news over the weekend as well, actually on Friday, from Billy Guerin joining you, basically saying the Kirill thing might be longer than we originally anticipated. As of last week, he had not yet started to skate at all with the team. And so only time will tell Davey when Kaprizov is back.
I wonder who'll be back first, Dante DiVincenzo or Kirill Kaprizov? I guess the betting money would probably be DiVincenzo, even though he's going to take longer, we assume, than Julius Randle, right?
He's been cleared for non-basketball activities or something like that. We tried to make sense of it on Thursday, I think, when you were gone. And Randall could do like actual basketball stuff.
Yes, he's a little closer.
DiVincenzo was something different.
We got some text to get into. We got Ode to a Dead Gal to get to, and much, much more between now and 6:30. Don't go away.
And now it's time for Ode to a Dead Guy.
It's our second of the day. That's rare. But sometimes duty calls. Sometimes circumstances emerge that make it incumbent upon us to do the proper oding during the same program. Earlier, it was Clint Hill, the news that the former Secret Service agent who was on the back of the JFK limo on November 22, 1963. Dealey Plaza, Dallas, Texas. It died at the age of 93 years old. And now we owed one of the great popular singers, certainly in my lifetime, Roberta Flack, who has also passed away at the age of 88 years old. And I can vividly remember, I don't know the exact year. I know that little Danny Barrero was in high school and can remember being in a car, listening on the car radio, the first time I heard Roberta Flack sing a song called Killing Me Softly. And the distinctive nature, first of all, of the song and of the voice, I lost myself in it, man. It's for me, she still remains as one who's had one of the most distinctive popular music voices that I can remember that had a tremendous effect on me. And for some people, that's not their favorite song of hers. For some people, the favorite song is her recording of Ewan McCall's "The First Time I Saw Your Face." Great ballad, terrific song. For me, it's Killing Me Softly. I don't even think it's close. If you haven't heard the song, you can hit it however you get to music. iHeart app is tremendous when it comes to free music, and you can find it, and it is absolutely outstanding. What's interesting is we were talking about Clint Eastwood earlier, and the fact that he once played a Secret Service character somewhat based loosely on Clint Hill in the 1993 motion picture. What was the name of that movie? I can see
In the Line of Fire?
In the Line of Fire, exactly. Thank you. Well, if you go back even further, Clint Eastwood had one of the most underrated movie thrillers ever done, a film called Play Misty for Me. And that film, the soundtrack in that film includes Roberta Flack's recording of "The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face." And that's what kind of put her on the map. She was in her 30s, and I think that became her first hit. But that's what the success of that film, the exposure that film got, and her voice in it is kind of what catapulted her. The song was named the Song of the Year at the Grammys. And then Roberta won the award a second time the following year for the aforementioned Killing Me Softly with his song. She had another one in 1974 called Feel Like Making Love. She was very involved politically speaking. And she worked with a number of big name musicians and singers over the years, including the late, great Donny Hathaway, Miles Davis, etc. She recorded an album of Beatles covers as recently as 2012. She came, I think, from the South, born in Carolina, raised in Arlington, Virginia. And like so many musicians, you come to find out that they started out being classically trained. You know, you learn the fundamentals. In basketball, it's, you get the footwork down, and then you can do the fancy stuff after. Well, she got her fundamentals training starting out as a classical pianist, a full scholarship to Howard University at 15 years old. Eventually, she started singing pop standards during the breaks. This was at a point where she was actually starting to do some teaching. Whole while I was studying classical music, especially in my younger years, I was also doing a lot of do-run-run, shadoobie-doo, all of that stuff with my peers. So I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded by music all my life. The Bach and the Chopin and the Schumann on one hand, and all the rhythm and blues as well. Her recording career started after she was discovered singing in a jazz club by a musician named Les McCann, who later wrote that, quote, her voice touched, tapped, trapped, and kicked every emotion I've ever known. I can't top that. That's just an absolutely beautiful way to describe her singing voice. She died peacefully, according to family, surrounded by her family. She had previously announced in 2002 she had something called motor neurone disease, and at that point could no longer sing as well. I don't recall I was even aware of that. Passing away this morning at the age of 88 years old. You can't, if you just want to listen to one song the rest of the night, you probably won't be able to stop at one, I wouldn't think. Killing Me Softly is just as unique a ballad, love ballad, as you could ever possibly hear. Bumper to Bumper still has a full hour yet to go today. I want to get into a subject I explored on sermons yesterday, but I haven't had a chance to talk about with Gaardsy yet, now that we're back on the same show for the first time in a while. And we'll get to a couple of other nuggets before we wrap things up at 6:30 right here. Texter Ryan recalls that the Vikings had two consecutive failed tush pushes against the Bengals in 2023 when the smallest guy on the team, Brandon Powell, tried pushing Nick Mullins. I do have some vague recollection of that there was some muttering and frustration that only we would end up using the smallest person at the back of the tush push. And I think that wasn't this past year. I think it was the year before. I don't think we did a tush push in 24.
No, and that does jog my memory because the other weird thing about the Nick Mullins tush push is he somehow threw an interception on the play, which had never happened
before.
That
true?
No.
Oh, I believed it, actually. It wouldn't surprise me. That's a Nick Mullins cheap shot.
He somehow threw an interception on the play.
Yeah, well, there are fake tush pushes.
There are.
That has been done, to be honest with you. I think the Eagles have done it, haven't they, with some success?
Probably.
Because the Eagles are the team we always assume they're going to actually do the tush push.
There's a lot of things you can do off of it.
Yeah.
In the memorable Black Friday Gopher victory against the Wisconsin Badgers, they faked the tush push and then did like an end around.
Correct.
To Marcus Major, and he took it like 40 yards down to like the 10.
Yes.
You line them all up, and people have thrown out of it. There's a lot of different things. The tush push is not just the one play. There's these offensive minds now, especially in the NFL with their BMI. There's a lot of different things they can do with the tush push.
I've got a lot of miscellaneous stuff to try to work in the rest of today's program, including a question for you regarding. I just shake my head sometimes at some of the stuff that gets written. But anyway, we had Jack McCallum on yesterday. Jack McCallum, Hall of Fame sports writer. He's written on everything, but he's basically most known for writing about the National Basketball Association. And he wrote the ultimate book probably on the Dream Team, the team of NBA players who were given the task of, reminding the world that we're still the best in basketball back when our amateurs were not consistently coming away with gold medals.
The team that changed everything.
1992 Barcelona team. That's exactly it. And there's just when you thought there was really nothing new under the sun to say or do regarding that team, HBO comes out with a new documentary that just came out within the last week that I stumbled upon. I wasn't even prepared to do anything with it. Had mild interest, and then I happened upon it, and then I couldn't stop watching it. I thought it was very well done, and it's called We Beat the Dream Team. And it's the story of the select team of college players, college stars, that would have represented the U.S. in 92 in Barcelona if there had not been this switch over to the pro teams. And it tells a story that people have kind of known about, but I don't think it has been updated or told in quite the way that it is in this particular documentary. And in this case, members of that select team are interviewed about the time they beat the Dream Team. And it was very early in Dream Team training camp. Not surprising that it would be in posh and Tony La Jolla, California.
Sounds nice.
And on either day 2 or 3, there's a scrimmage that takes place, full court scrimmage, between the Dream Teamers and this select team, which included names like Grant Hill, Chris Webber,
Jamal Mashburn,
Bobby
Allen
Hurley, Houston, Bobby Hurley, etc. And as they lay out the story, by the end of said scrimmage, the select team has outscored the Dream Team. They're keeping score. It's up on the scoreboard. And the debate that has broken out since, as laid out nicely in this piece, is in the documentary, is whether the select team actually beat them or whether the master psychologist, head coach of the Dream Team, Chuck Daly, orchestrated all of it. That he knew that his team was close to unbeatable, but the one thing he wanted to establish early was the obvious, that we don't want you getting fat. We want you to get maybe a little bit annoyed by something that might take place early in this thing. And what would annoy you more than these kids, these snot-nosed kids, knocking you off? And, of course, the Dream Team includes Michael and Magic and Larry and David Robinson. Go through the names, the biggest names that you could possibly. Scottie Pippen, not Isaiah Thomas.
Karl Malone, John Stockton.
Go down the list.
Yep.
Right.
Christian Laettner.
And Christian Laettner. So what I found, have you seen it yet?
No.
Okay. I think you'd enjoy it.
Yes, I will. It's on the list. I was watching the new, what was I watching? Oh, the Olympic documentary that just came out about last summer's basketball Olympics. Fully embedded USA, France.
Right, I have not seen that yet.
So I was pulling that up, but I saw the Dream Team one, and it's definitely on the list.
I had not known it was coming. I had not heard much advance notice about it at all. And what is fascinating is the recollections of the participants, both the college kids and the Dream Teamers as well. And the one individual, and I talked about this with Jack McCallum, the one individual who seems most adamant about believing that these kids can think that they knocked off the Dream Team, fine. If it makes you feel better about yourself, it's wonderful, but it's a pipe dream. It's Santa Claus. It's a made up story. It's cute. But at some point you have to grow up and realize that game was thrown. That's the term that Mike Krzyzewski used. He said Chuck Daly threw the game. And he's the only individual, interestingly, in either group who goes that far.
Coach K.
PJ Carlissimo says, look, is it possible Daly being Daly as it's going on and he's seeing our struggles, decided to not jump in as much as he could have in terms of timeouts or substitutions or whatever, that he maybe had happened upon something that, hey, this might have a good purpose for me right here. PJ says, yeah, I think that's possible. But he does not even agree with Krzyzewski that it was literally thrown. Interestingly, the NBA, it's not surprising that the kids say we beat them. I don't care what anybody says, we beat them fair and square. Apparently Jordan didn't play as much as some other players, but their point is, well, even if he didn't, I mean, look at all the players you had on that team. But they say we won that game fair and square. More telling, perhaps, to me is that a number of the Dream Teamers said they kicked our ass. That's what they did. Barkley said it. Magic said it. Michael said it. Said, look, I understand the mind games thing. I understand that's how Chuck operated. I came from Phil Jackson. I'm accustomed to that sort of thing. But he said, hey, we were bored that day. We weren't into it enough. We weren't taking it seriously enough.
MJ probably played 36 before it.
No, that's probably true.
Yep.
And smoked a few stogies, and we got our butt handed to it. But what McCallum believes Krzyzewski's wrong. As a guy who was there, he remembers walking into the gym after that scrimmage because he's there. He did note what is noted in the documentary. The score had been taken down. no longer said, I think it was the kids won by like 52-48 or 54-52, something like that. The score was missing. He did note that at the time that a lot, but they at that point didn't really realize anything momentous, if you want to call it momentous, had happened. It's early in training camp. It's the second practice, whatever the case may be. But in all of his conversations with people about this over the years, he thinks Coach K is making it up. And for whatever reason, almost to the point of cruelty. I mean, most of the conversation, even though there's an edge, is affable. And we're playing back and forth.
What are the
beat your
stakes?
ass. Exactly it. But Coach K is just, he sits down with Grant Hill and is just vicious. And Hill, being as magnanimous as he is, kind of takes it.
Very nice guy.
And doesn't want to like fire back. But it's everyone else, I think, tried very hard to be magnanimous to the point where the rematch it's also covered in the documentary. The rematch the next day, they play each other again. And I don't want to give away the whole story for those who do want to, enjoy the moment and looking back on it. Let's just say it went very differently the second day.
Sure.
But what I like is, once again, there was acknowledgement of that on the part of the Chris Webbers, the Mashburns, etc. It wasn't like they pretended, like, okay, maybe they got a little bit of the better of us. Everybody, other than Coach K, I thought was pretty honest about their emotions and their feelings, and also about giving credit to the other party in this particular case.
So how did Coach K allege that the game was thrown? Did he give examples of how, or did he just say we threw it?
He didn't. I guess as specific as he got is that Jordan didn't play the number of minutes he usually would.
So load management.
So some load management, no timeouts called when he could have done certain things. Because one of the things that McCallum did mention is, if you want to believe that it wasn't necessarily thrown, but that Daly was using it, it was that at no point does anybody remember him putting Pippen or Jordan on Hurley. Bobby Hurley was the player.
Yeah.
Hurley was kind of the straw that stirred the drink in that game. He got into every crevice. And basically he was matched up against Magic. And Magic was not a great one-on-one defender, especially by that point in his career.
And Hurley was a dog. People don't remember that.
Hurley was a dog. He was healthy then. He was a damn good player. Yep. And so he kept breaking down the defense and creating open dunks and open looks for other people. So I guess if you want to buy the Daly part, that if he really wanted to shut it down, Scotty, take him out of the game.
Right.
Just take him out. Or Michael, take him out. And that matchup rarely existed in the game. Now, there's no box score of that game, I don't believe, that's ever been done, which would be interesting if indeed there was, in terms of actually the number of minutes, whatever. But it's a nice little slice of a story that I think everybody thought, well, there's not much left to know about the Dream Team. But it did raise, I think, very interesting questions. And there are good highlights of both games, both scrimmages that took place as well. And it is interesting to remember that the assumption is Daly ordered that the score be taken down so there'd be no discussion about what had taken place on that particular occasion.
Probably smart.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a story, I don't know if it's covered in this, but wasn't there a story that Weber did peacock a little bit at the hotel or something? I thought there was
some. They said that the veterans said there was some peacocking during the game too.
Yeah, and I remember
during the scrimmage,
Larry Bird limping to his hotel room, basically saying, "We'll see you tomorrow." One of those things.
Right,
okay, young, but because they were obviously, I'm sure the kids thought, "What the hell just happened? This is unbelievable." It's interesting that of the Dream Team, because we all know what happened. They went and crushed everybody, including Tony Kukoc. I know McCallum and you talked about that. We talked about it. That was part of the Last Dance bit too, of how Pippen and Jordan just eviscerated poor Tony Kukoc, who later became an important player on their title teams. But it's interesting that the two big stories, besides just what happened in Barcelona, are that scrimmage and the scrimmage they had against themselves.
That's correct.
Where Jordan and Magic got into it.
Yeah.
And we knew
that was in Monte Carlo, I think.
Yeah, the two stories, just scrimmages, can have so much lore associated with them, I think is phenomenal.
And McCallum told me Sunday he did have. And that interview is available where? Where do people find it if they want to? Did you say you put in a special spot?
Just on the Bumper to Bumper Dan Barrero podcast page. It's isolated as a conversation.
Yeah.
So if you're a subscriber, if you've rated us, if you are following the Bumper to Bumper Show podcast channel, it's right there for you.
Yeah, no question about that.
Labeled as a conversation.
It was a good one beyond that particular subject. He's a good interview, as you know. McCallum is just a very good guest, and he's plugged in as pretty much anybody. Where was I going to go? I had something else about
the scrimmages. What
McCallum said that he actually hired somebody to look at the video of the Monaco scrimmage or Monte Carlo one, wherever it was, to get a box score out of that game. So he was able to collect I think it might have been in the book that he wrote. I'm not exactly sure.
I love it.
But yeah, it was pretty good stuff. In any case, if you're interested, it is available too if you missed it yesterday. And sometimes, Sunday audience is nice, but it's a little bit smaller. And that's why I wanted to mention it again today and give people a little bit of background into the story as well.
You mentioned the Kevin Durant stuff, how they're probably going to have to trade him.
Yes.
So I watched the first episode of, and I talked about this last week on Thursday when you were gone. I watched on my way to Purdue the first episode of, I think, 6 that they did about the 2024 Olympics. And it's really good stuff. Everybody's embedded. You've got Serbia, you've got Canada, you've got France, obviously, and then the United States in the Olympics and the build-up. And I'm only one episode in, but I left that episode obsessed with getting Kevin Durant on the Timberwolves.
Yeah, that happens.
Even at his advanced age, and all, because he's still good.
He is good. His numbers are still good.
Who knows if they'll be able to pull it off, and who knows if it would even work. But I just love everything about how he talks, how he thinks, how he sees things. I haven't gotten to the point where he cries yet, but they basically did the Michael Jordan thing, the Jordan doc bit, where they're showing videos or at least alluding to the fact that France is coming for you. Like, France thinks they're going to beat you. Canada thinks they're going to beat you.
Right.
This is what they're saying. They're saying, well, it's funny. America had to bring their A players to beat us. And Durant's like, well, yeah, you guys get to do that. Okay. Well, yeah, let's strap in. Let's see. Like, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
Like, I was just obsessed with KD after that.
Well,
and now I got to get back to it.
I think, you're running a risk with him because he's getting older, obviously. He's not a great defender at this point, but he keeps himself in great shape. And I believe in the notion that he'd be energized wherever he goes next if it's a contending team, right? If whether it's here or someplace else, a team where at least on paper, he's back for having a chance to make a little bit of a run. He's got to right now miss that terribly because Phoenix is irrelevant, right? The Suns are playing out the string this season. They're not a factor the rest of the way. And you look at his numbers. The numbers he's putting up are still pretty incredible, given his age, in terms of shooting, scoring, etc. So it may well be a pipe dream. There's a number of variables to that, but what's changed is he's going to be traded. No one doubts it at this point because they're boxed in to the degree they are, and so they'll almost be forced to do it.
I think you'd get a better Ant too. I mean, if you bring his guy, I think you'd get a better version of Anthony Edwards,
I think that's
too.
possible.
I think he would be, in a weird way, energized in a weird way.
Well, you certainly are back to having a number two in a way that you don't have since Towns left, and with the people you're trying to replace him with, even if they end up being helpful players in the case of Randall and DiVincenzo. This story, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on this, but, well, 2 other things. One is NBA related. One is college basketball related. So I'm looking at a headline. I mean, Gophers feel the pressure when they're favored to win. I mean, and what they're talking about, obviously, is they have this great trip to California. They become only the second team so far, at least I think, to sweep USC and UCLA. And they come back here and they lay an egg against Penn State, right? And they had previously gotten on a roll, and then didn't they lose to Washington here
at home
as well?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you can't. I don't know how you sell this stuff with a straight face. They haven't done nearly enough good for me to go with. That's the oldest angle in the book, right? It's, you can't stand prosperity. You know what? We need to be the underdog. When people think we got a little pressure on us, we can't handle it. Come on. It's so simplistic a line of thinking and logic, and I don't believe it. And I would say, in all honesty, even if I did believe it, if I'm associated with the Gophers, I'm not uttering it out loud because not enough good has happened where you can really, even with a straight face, go down that road. Just say we're inconsistent or we didn't take care of this business or Dawson Garcia had an off game or whatever the case may be. But this idea of, well, we're fine if we're favored to lose by 9, but if we're favored to win by 4, come on, not enough has happened. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Buckets. It's already happened.
Yeah.
It's already happened. It's taken 5 games for most people to forget everything about Jimmy Butler. And I guess that's the nature of sports. It's no matter how badly it ended in Miami, no matter how unprofessionally Jimmy Butler behaved again to get out of Miami, he gets on a basketball court, plays off of one of the all-time greats in Steph Curry pretty well, very well thus far. And I think they're 4-1, either 4-1 and 5 or 5-1 since Butler came aboard. And it's like all's forgiven, right? All is forgotten. It's now what are we back to? This Buckets is dangerous.
Yep. Playoff Jimmy.
Golden State's dangerous. Steph's got somebody to play off of a little bit who plays a little differently than he does, right? Gives the Warriors offense a slightly different look than just a jump shooting kind of approach. Hell, Draymond has already flatly predicted they're going to win the title.
Is that right?
Yes, he actually said that publicly, either at a podcast or after a game. I'm not sure which. So, look, the league has always been more interesting with Jimmy Butler in it. There's no question about that. That's undeniable. But it is what's taken place in this short period of time, because they haven't really won anything. But what's already happened enough, there's been enough progress made that it's like we've got amnesia, and Buckets is a hero again, and none of that stuff needs to be brought up anymore. And I'm thinking to myself, shouldn't we make him have to do a little more than this? Even if he's been good, shouldn't it be more than winning, 4 out of 5 regular season games? I don't even know who they've played that's any good. Maybe 1 or 2 decent teams, I'm not sure. Shouldn't we be a little tougher, a little more resistant?
We're not, though,
to the Buckets seduction,
and especially NBA media is not.
No, that's true,
because they never care after a player opts out or demands a trade or just decides I'm not going to play.
Correct.
They talk about it, and people get loud about it, and then they come back. Like you've always said, the players have the last word. If you come in and perform, then everybody forgets everything. Who didn't see that coming, though, by the way? Like the second that deal was made, everybody said, look out for Buckets.
Yeah,
who knows if it's going to go anywhere, but he's going to be ready. He's going to be engaged. He's probably going to give out his number.
He's always better on the way in than he is on the way out.
Totally. We all know the Jimmy Butler business.
Yeah, for sure.
It's going to be, we'll see how this one spectacularly implodes in a few years. Because it's inevitable, right?
Dr. Phil writes, Dan, would you say the Jimmy Butler with the backup scrimmage was a dream team scrimmage equivalent? That's well played. Remember that?
I do. What I remember about it is, because Jeff Teague, now speaking of podcasts, we played it.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff Teague basically, he just thought the whole thing was funny.
Yes,
I'm like, that just tells you everything you need to know about Jeff Teague.
That's true.
And he also said, did we ever play when Teague didn't think he was coming to Minnesota, and then his agent basically said, well, this is your best contract. So he was bitter the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like, of course, not surprising.
We learn when our worst fears are confirmed, it's never good, right? Because all it does is keep us paranoid for the next time, right? The assumption that there are people laughing at us or they don't want to be here, correct?
And Teague straight up said it.
Wait till they get to that new arena. They'll all want to come to the new state-of-the-art arena.
The City Center arena?
Yeah, whatever we'll call it. I'm guessing it'll be sponsored.
But by who? I mean, Target's yeah,
that's true.
Maybe Target just keeps going with it.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's possible.
With Target's shrinking their influence here in the Twin Cities.
Very, very hard to say. We got some other texts that I want to get into. I had one other. I have a football subject I want to explore with you as well. It's Combine Week, correct?
It is. Everybody's in Indy.
Yeah, directly related to Combine, but it's almost like hot stove league chatter regarding the National Football League and your favorite team.
The world is facing urgent, monumental issues, and your students may be considering a career where they can make a global impact, even if they don't know where to begin. In the heart of Washington, D.C., students gain world-renowned expert knowledge and a global network as they pursue a master's degree and turn their passions into practice. Thousands of the world's leaders discovered what they're truly capable of at the George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs, and you can help them find it.
Is your favorite football team blowing it right now?
Saw you tweet that. What are we talking about?
Well, I'm going to be accused of doing some trolling here and hot taking. And I know what I'm about to suggest isn't probably very realistic. But I have to admit, right now I'm suffering. If I were a Vikings fan, I'd be suffering from a little bit of FOMO. With the word breaking that there are no fewer than 4 teams expressing significant interest in the possibility of acquiring.
Oh, don't say it.
Who do you think I'm going to say?
Aaron Rodgers.
No.
Russell Wilson.
Matthew Stafford.
Matthew Stafford. Oh, okay.
Matthew Stafford is apparently for sale. And I don't, for the life of me, get it. I honestly don't understand. I mean, I guess if you're the Rams, you're going, well, how much longer has he got? We got to retool. If we can make a killing, if we can get a Herschel Walker kind of return, then we'll figure out the quarterback position after. But I play it out with Matthew Stafford. Now, I guess part of the issue is I think he's due to receive like between 25 and 27 million for next year, which seems low for Stafford, and he wants more. And maybe they're not prepared to give him more. I don't know, man. Matthew Stafford?
We saw it twice. He's a stud.
He still can play. They came easily the closest to knocking off the Eagles.
You're right.
Think about it.
You're right. They did.
Basically 2 plays. And imagine Stafford and JJ.
With KOC, who knows him well.
That's exactly it.
Won a Super Bowl together.
It's the best. So I don't know. Again, I get it. We want the clock to start, and then we're spending a lot of money, and I don't even know if there are salary cap implications to taking him on. But I think right now he's due like 25, 27 mil next year. That doesn't sound that unreasonable to me. Now
it actually doesn't, but he doesn't want to play for that, right?
No, that's the issue. Yeah, you probably have to get back up to 40. And then how long do you want to do it with him? I think he's got 2 years left in him. Now, did you see what the Rams, according to one unnamed general manager, will do to replace him? If indeed they make a move? Because the rumor is the Giants covet him. The Giants, maybe they would give him a lot, Now, again, if you're Stafford, do you want to go to the Giants, though?
Probably not.
Because then are you just going to get pummeled the last 2 years of your career?
But maybe it's hazard pay. You'll make the money that you want to make.
Maybe that's it. I don't know. One GM says if Stafford goes east, for example, the Rams will replace Stafford with Aaron Rodgers. That's going to be the logical place for him to land for one season.
Good luck.
And that he will be willing to. He's a California guy. He's already eyeing that organization. And they might look at it then as we'll as an experiment. What do we got to lose at that point? Because we do think we still have decent infrastructure. So we'll try it with a veteran guy. If we also get like 5 draft choices for Stafford, that's going to help us build into the future as well. I'm just asking whether we should be, kicking the tires on him too. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I would say if he would play under his current contract, 1,000%. Now I'm reading his contract. He has a potential out after 2025. Or is it before 2025? That's where I don't always understand.
Yeah, I'm confused.
The contract.
But what's the number that you have for him right now being paid in 2025? Isn't it like 25, 27 mil?
His base salary is 23. He's got some bonuses in there.
Okay.
His cap hit's 49, and I think would be the issue.
All right, that's probably
his cap hit's about 50 mil, which I assume, unless he would restructure here. And we all know all this stuff means nothing. Gesslin's taught us that forever, right? All these numbers mean literally nothing.
That's true. They do.
Because they figure out a way to mess around with the money and do different things, and then the next thing you know, you can sign everybody, which makes no sense. So who knows? But it's not the worst idea, honestly. Because he can still play.
He can still play. I think he keeps himself in shape.
And he'd be familiar with everything KOC wants to do.
Yeah.
They had a great relationship in Los Angeles. Kevin loved coaching him. I
just don't. I mean, if I were him, I wouldn't want to go there. I'd want to go to a contender, right? I mean, if you're going to do it. Now, again, maybe he's got to decide how picky he wants to be. Because if his priority is $50 million, then he'll probably have to accept going to a bad team.
Right.
And then I guess you need, how much money? Hasn't he made decent money?
I'm trying to see.
Of course, it's never enough. I understand that's how it works. And this would be obviously his last big pay period. Also, while you're looking that up, Gessling joined us Friday.
Jeez, he's made a lot of money.
That's what I thought. he sounds to me, Gessling sounds more and more like a guy who thinks that the ship has sailed on Darnold. That, and I'm beginning to think that's likely the case too. I think the only thing that changes it would be if somehow the market implodes or shrivels up somehow, which is difficult to believe it will. Although, I mean, so who do you have looking for quarterbacks right now? You've got Pittsburgh.
Yep.
You've got both New York teams, right?
Yep. Raiders.
You've got the Raiders, and I guess you would have the Rams if indeed the Rams made a move on Stafford, right? Those would be the main teams.
Yes.
So that means that's several teams. So the idea of who's the former Bears quarterback that the Steelers had most recently?
Justin Fields.
Fields might be out there. Darnold might be out there. I guess technically Danny Dimes might be out there, although I think it's more likely that he probably comes back here than, getting any kind of big payday someplace else. Point being that's not enough quarterbacks to go around. So the ones who are, I guess what I'm saying is, in that scenario, it's hard to believe that the Darnold market will shrivel up in a way that reaches a number where he says, well, I don't need to leave it all then. I'll take a little less money and I'll stay here if they're willing to give me a reasonable rate. I don't think that rate's going to be reasonable enough to keep him here. Do you?
Probably not. But what Alec Lewis wrote about last week is one of the things that the Vikings have to figure out this week is they got to do their background on what they think the market is going to be for Darnold. Because if there is a competitive market for Darnold, in a way, they should use that to their advantage, and they should franchise him and then trade him and try to get some type of draft compensation. Because the more, in just reading about it, they're only going to have I know it's I think 7th overall in terms of free agent money available with the new cap. It's not as much as I originally thought in terms of the dollar amount. It's like 60 to 65 mil. And so if you franchise them, there's 40 right out the gate, and you haven't done anything else. And we all know they have a million needs, and they have 2 draft picks and a general manager with a questionable draft history. So you got all that going. So it would be risky, but if you find out there's a couple teams that want them.
Yeah, you got to know that you can trade them.
Yes.
Right.
And because then you can actually use it as a reasonable chip, an asset, and get a couple of picks maybe for them.
New Orleans also, somebody said, don't they need a QB?
I suppose so. Yeah, I never think of them, but yeah.
Maybe the Browns too, I guess, come to think of it.
That's true.
Yeah.
So that's about 7 that we just named?
Yeah. There's got to be somebody who's going to be willing to spend a decent amount of money on Darnold. And there's hometown discounts. I don't think he's going to be willing to take that much of one. The numbers that we were talking about several weeks ago, where you say, okay, I can get him for, 2 years, $40 million, $20 million a year.
But even then, that's a third of what you have available.
Well, that's true.
And I don't know if I want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I've completely flipped from give him whatever he wants, December 5th, whenever we were talking about it, right? Or even after the Packer game.
Yeah, but you said it. I mean, you can mess around with the cat. You move stuff around anyway, and you just put off the pain till later.
I'll probably flip-flop a couple of more times.
The other thing, and this is a good thing to get into later this week, now that's Combine Week, because what's Combine Week all about? Combine Week is about hope again. We're back to, it's the precursor to the draft itself that sets into motion the sometimes ridiculous emotions that get wired into fans. They start who are looking for salvation for their team, right? And so they start hearing names that they never even heard of before this week began.
Right.
And they start acting like they know everything about these players, and they start assuming that, okay, again, we can check this box with this player. This guy represents the kind of muscle we need in the middle of our offensive line, et cetera, et cetera. And the dirty little secret is we don't really know how many of any of these players can be a factor. The only team that does seem to know about all that is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles seem to have a greater understanding of, separating the good from the mediocre when it comes to college players than anybody in football right now, right? That's why they're in the position they're in. It's remarkable. And so you have to hope your team can emulate that to a certain extent. But there's so much false hope that is driven by suddenly it's magical. A bunch of names that now the hardcores might already know the names, but the more casuals don't. But they will. They'll hear about. Well, you should have seen this guy.
Yep.
And this guy's. I tell you what,
he's testing well.
He's testing well, and
off the charts.
He's better than you think. This guy's not as good as you think. And by the end of this week, we feel like we've got a whole new understanding of who's going to save our franchise and who isn't. And many times there's absolutely zero truth to it, especially if your team doesn't draft wisely. And the Vikings, let's be honest, have not. That's still the issue for the front office of this team, is being a lot more consistent in terms of drafting. The free agency thing went well.
It did.
There's no question about that. But drafting has not. And that's part of the reason I refuse to spend day after day in it, immersed in it. It doesn't mean there's not room for it. I just don't like misleading the audience that much, because the names suddenly that you've never heard of before become gospel, and they become everything. And it's rarely that simple. And when it comes to free agency, as you mentioned, the money goes faster than you think, and the players aren't necessarily all waiting for your team. That's the other thing we assume. Right. We go, well, okay, we need a guard. Well, there's a guard we can plug in. We need an interior defensive lineman. There's a cornerback. Well, there's other teams also competing. Those players might have other options that are better. Those teams might want to stay with their existing teams. And that, again, also I think is the cruel nature of hearing about all the money we have and free agency and assuming that we're going to be able to take care of all of our issues.
However, I do like our chances in the free agent market more, because it seems like Kwesi does have a good skill.
So far.
Obviously, last year was pretty much a home run, right, with the guys that he brought in.
Yes.
All the defensive players that weren't huge names, that didn't wow anybody, right, when it happened.
Very true.
I don't know if anybody was signed day one.
No, just okay. And if they sounded like functional names.
Yeah.
But nobody that we felt was going to move the needle.
We weren't thinking about Andrew Van Ginkel.
No.
Like we came to think about him almost immediately. And obviously Blake Cashman and Grenard had a great year too. So I think he does a pretty good job in the staff, it seems like. I have more confidence in the free agency period at this point than I do the draft period.
Yeah, well, understandably.
If I'm ranking them. And so I'm almost more interested and intrigued by what they do with the open money that they do have.
I don't think we have any contract extension yet on Kwesi, correct?
Have not heard.
And everybody keeps telling me that there's nothing ominous about that. It's just interesting that it's taken as long as it did, and it's that the head coach got served first.
Yep.
Which is also rather interesting. So we'll see if that gets resolved. I assume it's not going to get resolved now. With Combine this week, I guess you could announce something anytime.
They could docu-sign it.
They could, because, again, there could be just there's some legalese that's slowed down the process. All right, let's break. We'll come back. We will wrap things up. Remind you of two outstanding guests earlier today. I'll give you some highlights from that and prepare you for tomorrow's program as well. Don't go.
Show wrap presented, as always, by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the bumper-to-bumper show wrap.
No, Marty Wexler in recent years has not joined us this week, right? He used to join us twice a year, including during the Combine, as I recall it. Now we get him Wexler Wednesday, right? Before the draft.
Wednesday of draft week. Really the day before night one.
Correct. So I think that it'll probably be, I don't think we've heard anything to the contrary, so I'm assuming that it will be the same this week. I want to thank Johnny Athletic, who joined us from Oklahoma City, where the Wolves will take on the Thunder in the rematch tonight, a game that you can hear right here on the flagship, FM 100.3 The Fan, after Fan on Demand. We were a national game yesterday, the second game of the doubleheader. There were four national games yesterday, two on ABC.
That's right.
And then two on ESPN. We were the last one of the night. Tonight, I think we're on ESPN TV, but you can hear it on the Fan.
I think it's NBA TV tonight.
Excuse me, what did I say? ESPN TV?
Yeah,
NBA
I think it's
TV.
NBA
Exactly
TV.
right. You're exactly right.
But Alan Horton is right there for you.
That's the beauty of it.
About 25 minutes from now.
Johnny filed a live report at 3:30. You now confirm an injury update, correct, regarding availability?
Finchy says Jalen Clark is available.
He was the plucky little story out of nowhere who got everybody's attention yesterday before he got hurt. The game changed after he left, and he's expected back. So that's good news.
By the way, I don't know if you've heard him talk after games. He was the one that came up with, I thought it was going to be clap, sit, go home. That was his bit,
yes.
which is hilarious.
Yes.
He's got great potential.
He does.
For every other week appearances on Bumper to Bumper when Mike Conley joins the coaching staff in a few years.
That's a very good call.
You got to have a scouting report on the next wave.
You're right. Always. You got to always look ahead for sure.
Conley, we think Wednesday, by the way, for people wondering. Yeah, it's been a while because of the All-Star break and everything, so we hope Mike Conley's going to join on Wednesday.
Nick Halter joined us today. He these days edits and writes for the Axios.com, the local chapter, and he had a very interesting piece he wrote suggesting a possible site for the new A-Rod Mark Lori Tolosa Arena in downtown Minneapolis, and we talked about what he acknowledged is challenging about this particular spot and sort of the ramifications of looking for a spot downtown and frankly, how the real estate market imploding in his mind has opened some doors to some possibilities that ordinarily would not have existed. So if you missed that, highly recommend it. That was between 4:30 and 5 o'clock this evening as well. Tomorrow is Tuesday. I'm assuming Luigi tomorrow.
That's the plan. Yep.
And who knows what else? But that's the early plan for the Bumper to Bumper crew. We did 2 odes today. We could have done a third, which we might save for tomorrow. And those will be available to you, podcastable. In addition to, as Gaardsy said, second shot at our interview with Jack McCallum, a Hall of Fame writer of Dream Team fame, among other things. I had to, when I texted him Saturday, I said, any chance you can come on Sunday? And he goes, you do a show on Sunday? I said, yeah, it's sad but true. 6 days a week. It's not quite enough.
That's a fact.
So he said, he said he would do the sermons. He said this is the closest to evangelism he'll get, he said, on Sunday morning.
It's a lot of us.
Which is very true.
A lot of us are in that category.
So that is been captured by Gaardsy as a separate item if you missed it, and would highly recommend it as well. Larry Mondello guy writes that last week Hall of Fame broadcaster Mark Rosen reported that as far as a quasi extension goes, he believes the framework of a deal is indeed in place.
Well, he would know. I mean,
the framework of a deal.
His wife is closely involved in contracts.
Very, very true, Davey.
But they're on vacation, it seems like, every other week in Palm Springs.
Can you blame them?
So I don't blame them, but that could be the holdup.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That could be the...
Rosen's having brunch while they're trying to get Quasi's contract extension. And
you might be right.
They're in out-of-office mode.
100% correct about that. That's pretty much all I got. When do you play again? When does your women's team play?
Wednesday night. They've had a week off since Purdue. Your gal, Sophie Swanson, did you see the meat grinder that they got in at the end of the game?
No.
It's coached by Coach Barrero.
No.
Double technicals, pushing.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, got a little chippy.
Oh, no.
Got a little chippy at the end.
Yeah.
But it all got ironed out.
Purdue has struggled this year, right? They have not had a good year.
So they play Washington Wednesday night at the Barn and then Michigan State on Saturday, and that's the end of the regular season.
And then it's time, postseason. Think about it.
I get to go to Indy next week. Think about that.
So are you a bubble NCAA team?
Yes, right. They've been on the right side of the bubble for the last 2 months.
Okay.
Right now they're in a really good spot. So I think they're going to get in.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're going to get in.
And
a win Wednesday, I think, would kind of
pretty
solidify.
much cement it?
Yeah.
So the best team in the Big Ten women's side is it UCLA?
Yes.
Okay.
UCLA. National champion. I mean, they lost to USC the first time. It was at USC. They get to play sometime this week.
And who's the odds-on favorite to win the whole thing this year?
I mean, it's them. It's South Carolina. It's Notre Dame.
How did South Carolina lose to UConn by 80? At South Carolina.
It stunned all of us.
Was that game thrown?
Maybe Don Staley trying to send a message.
Maybe part of a deep message about trying to make sure we don't get too cocky about who we are and what we've been?
It's possible.
Yeah, that was a pretty dramatic performance, was it not?
Yes. Texas is in the mix, too. There's like 4 or 5 teams that I think could legitimately win it. It's exciting.
It should be fun, yeah, and it's all, like I said, coming up soon. And I mentioned Louis tomorrow. I think he's picking up with the Wild again. I think he's doing a couple more Wild games pretty soon, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
That's what he told me.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's this week or next week. I can't remember.
It's whenever they go west.
That's what it is.
Those
You're right.
2 games. I think it's Seattle and Vancouver.
Yeah, that's very true, Davey. We talked about it on Sunday. They had a excellent come-from-behind victory Saturday against the Red Wings. That was a nice performance. Down 3-1 late. About 7 minutes to go. You don't give up on the ball game, on the puck game. and then you end up winning it in OT. And so they're in that, I guess, they're in that limbo position now where all they can do is just try to sort of sustain themselves. But I don't know. It's feeling more and more like we may have seen the last of Kaprizov this year.
Forever?
Well, for this year. I really don't think you can rule that out at all.
How down was Guerin on Friday when you had him on?
Well, he wasn't. No, you know why he wasn't down? Because early we just talked about the tournament. And, he was buoyant about that whole thing.
Yeah, it was great.
He did acknowledge that he got mixed signals from his decision to give the president a chance to do a pregame
I talked with Russo about it on Thursday when you were gone. It was classic.
Yeah.
I mean, it was everything that 2025 is
exactly
in a nutshell.
100%.
It is what it is.
But yeah, we had a good conversation about the coming out party for some wild players in the tournament and just, how well it went that night in the championship game. Obviously, they wanted to win.
I don't know how you leave McDavid open.
But it is astonishing.
We
were talking about that. It's like it's
Connor McDavid's the guy that's open.
Not just open, like he could have read a book. I mean, it was bizarre. But
we're hockey guys. We're
hockey guys. We absolutely get it. Fan on Demand, and then Wolves Thunder tonight. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3:00.